Switch server.
Oh, okay.
All right, what is up, Twitch stream? MKohl40 here with Sebastian Huss, and our guest commentator and interview tonight is Fraizer Smith.
Hello.
So let's start the night off with giving the floor to you, Fraizer. Give us an introduction about yourself. Who are you, and why are you relevant?
Um, I am. Let's see. I always start off by saying what I do with my actual life. So in real life, I am an accountant. I went to school for it. I graduated in 2011. So I spend most of my days doing that. And when I'm not doing that, I'm playing Yu-Gi-Oh or writing or reading or something. But I enjoy like anime and movies and things like that. Like everyone else, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and I like all of the standard anime, like One Piece and things like that. I used to watch the Yu-Gi-Oh cartoon when I was younger. Just standard, typical stuff that most of us nerds probably did and still do.
What is your favorite anime?
My favorite anime of all time, I would have to say, is Death Note. And then most recently, I really feel like because I just watched Hunter x Hunter in like 2014, and that was like absolutely amazing. And I'm mad that I hadn't seen it before then, but that is like really close to being my favorite anime as well. But I really like Death Note, Code Geass, Hunter x Hunter, are like my big three favorite that I just can't even like. Nothing really comes close to those. I have a lot of anime that I like, but those are like my main ones.
So you really are the stereotypical Yu-Gi-Oh player, at least in that regard. You really.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's really good to know.
Yeah, I like all of that most people do, video games and things like that.
So, Fraizer, how long have you been playing Yu-Gi-Oh?
I have been playing since Pharaoh Servant came out, so I'm not exactly sure which year it was, but Pharaoh Servant had just come out, and I remember my friend got me into it. I know I saw that I wanted three Blue Eyes White Dragons, like every person who probably started the game, and uh, I ended up packing a Jinzo on my first pack, and I remember getting like rape traded for it because I traded it for $1,000 restrict because Pegasus was my favorite character in the TV show. So he had just summoned $1,000 restrict in the TV show like that weekend, and then some guy had it, and I was like, I need to have that card. So I traded like my first edition secret rare Jinzo for ultra rare $1,000 restrict, and I was like the happiest person in the world. And then years later, when I realized what actually happened, and like it was just like kind of crazy to think about, like, oh wow, like I actually got like ruined in that trade.
It's
But
definitely
yeah.
interesting because you started playing during Pharaoh Servant, and I still like that the Blue Eyes trend was relevant even like 6 or 7 sets in.
Oh yeah, like we were, and in Pharaoh Servant, if I'm not mistaken, that's like the fourth set of Yu-Gi-Oh, and even then, like everyone who played the game, like because of Kaiba's influence in the show, you couldn't get over Blue Eyes White Dragon. It was just like his presence was known, and he looked like it just was like a cool looking card.
Now, I specifically remember that Blue Eyes in like the pre-tense days, like and them designing the show, Blue Eyes could have been Yugi's monster, and then could you imagine Kaiba having the Dark Magician?
I like the way it is now. In my mind, I can't perceive it being the other way around because of the way Yugi and Yami dress. It's like the tight spandex looking clothing. Like it looks like they're meant to be like the Dark Magician or Dark Magician of Chaos. So I can't imagine them as like the Blue Eyes unless they changed like their color scheme or something about their clothing to make it like because they kind of like match like what they play almost if you really look at them.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Like Yugi does remind you more of a Dark Magician kind of guy, but like the fact that he
Right.
could have been a Blue Eyes kind of guy was very
Yeah,
interesting.
I can actually see that only because I used to watch the Arc Zero where before it was all about card games and it was like about actual like shadow games. And it was like dark. Like that's a really dark anime. Like he takes people's souls and games and stuff like that. He's like really evil. So it was really like a different world. And I guess if it were like in that context, I could totally see him playing something different than the Dark Magician in that case.
How do you feel about like the current Yu-Gi-Oh anime and like the voice actors and things that go to the events?
The current anime I do not partake. Like Arc V, I think it's called.
Yeah.
Is that it? Yeah, I have not watched that at all. I stopped watching after. Let's see, I watched the original series. I watched GX, and I
Did,
watched a little bit of 5Ds. But after 5Ds, I kind of just stopped watching
did you
the
watch them
anime
in
altogether.
English or Japanese? Come on.
I watched the original series in English because at that time It used to come on like WB in the morning on Saturdays, and so I'm like used to like the really bad dubbing where it's like I'm not going to panic and things like that. But like I enjoyed the English voices because when you're younger, like you don't know anything about like the Japanese voices, or at least I didn't anyway. And I thought Pegasus' voice sounded really cool, and I used to always like emulate his voice at locals to make people like annoyed. And
Really?
then yeah, it was really cool. Like I used to really love Pegasus. Like he's always talking about like Yugi Boy, and it's like really condescending, kind of like just not taking anything seriously. So I thought it was really cool, and I think one of the best things that ever happened in like competitive tournaments is when they started bringing the actual voice actors from the TV show to events. Like I thought, seeing like, oh, this is the voice actor for Pegasus, this is the voice actor for Yugi and Jaden and everything. Like I thought that was just like one of the coolest things to actually like hear those people my whole childhood and then actually meet them.
Wow, fair enough. Someone had a side question here for you. They wanted to know who your favorite character is from Hunter x Hunter.
My favorite character from Hunter x Hunter is Killua for sure. I always go for the Sasuke-esque character, Sasuke being from Naruto. So like the character that's kind of like not the main character, but kind of like his recluse sidekick, who's always emo and has the super intellectual personality, but also just kind of like super like they're usually like really fast for whatever reason. Like in Yu Yu Hakusho, it's like Hiei, Sasuke's really fast, and Naruto, and Killua is like the fast character in Hunter x Hunter. So I always go for like that type of character. Like they're really like my go to, like super quiet and super just calculated and considered like extremely intelligent.
Someone also asked if you can hit us with Pegasus impersonation.
Oh god, I knew that was gonna. I don't. Oh, let me see if I can do this. I don't. I'm gonna ruin it. I don't want to. It's been so long. Let me see. This is so embarrassing. I'm gonna make an honest attempt for the sake of the interview. Um, Yugi boy, I activate my blue eyes white dragon. That's the best I can do for now.
Oh, that's good enough. Um, now, now since we've talked,
That was pretty good though.
Thanks.
so one of the other things that's been going on in the community has been Nickelodeon contacting players to get on and talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! On short commercials, I believe it is. Was that something that you were initially asked about, or was that something you wanted to pursue?
I looked into it, and I honestly did not really pursue it at all. I saw the post on Reddit. I saw the post on Zodiac where they were talking about like, oh, go look at this, and I was like, right now I'm focusing so much on my career, trying to climb the corporate ladder, that I just was like, I don't really even want to get involved with it. Like, I think that that's something for, like, I could totally see like Jeff doing that and like Billy and stuff like that. But me personally, like, I have so much time involved with like accounting, and then switching over to Yu-Gi-Oh as my hobby. I just couldn't see myself pursuing that as much as everyone else. So I just was like, I'm just going to stay out and see what happens, and I wish them all the best.
Do you think it's a good idea that Nick's reaching out to the community like this?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's really cool. I think that it's something that definitely could help. I mean, if you have any kind of bridge, I think that it's great that bridges are being built between the player base and the anime and the player base and the representatives from Konami. Like, things like that help. Like, they can't be bad. We want to build bridges, not walls. So I think that it's definitely a good thing that someone's finally reaching out to players and saying, hey, we want to hear from you. We want to know what you guys are like. I mean, you guys have been playing this game since you were children. You've grown up with it. I just think it's really cool that's even a thing.
Now, Yu-Gi-Oh! Events. You said you've been playing for quite some time. When was your first event,
Yep.
and what was it like? Being
My first event. Go ahead.
like an SJC or something, a regional.
Okay, so my first time going to regionals was back in like 2005, 2006, when 2005, 2006. It was like the first around when Demise was like big. Like Demise was like the OTK deck, and I just remember going to a community college and playing against like Demise decks and getting ruined. And I was like, this is stupid. Like, you just died on turn one like all the time. And that was like my first experience with a regional. I went like 3 and 4. And then my first event with a Shonen Jump Championship was also Philadelphia, because I didn't travel at the time. I was so young. And that was the biggest Shonen Jump Championship at that time. It was about 808 players. and I played Chaos Return, which was the big deck at the time. And no one really knew about Chaos Recruiter up until that event was won by Kyle Duncan. And I thought that I would do good because I was like a big fish in a little pond. Like to my peers, to my friends and my locals, like I was one of the better players. But in the grand scheme of things, you just like you think that you're good, and then you go to somewhere like that, and you realize like there's 800 people in this room, and you are like on the bottom like 50 of them because like everyone like not maybe not bottom 50, but like you're like not significant enough to actually do well at these things. Back then you really had to like out of 10 rounds you would have had to go on X and 1 to guarantee a top 8 spot, and you might not even make it then because 800 people and top 8, like it's actually possible that you won't even make it X1. So you had to be like really good to top back then, and I just didn't understand like how ridiculously hard it was to do well. So that was my first experience going to a official tournament.
Now, Fraizer, before the stream, we were talking about campus Yu-Gi-Oh a little bit. How do you feel about colleges being involved in Yu-Gi-Oh as a whole? Not so much for like events, but just going around in like your spare time and seeing people on campus playing the game.
When I was in college, we used to go to we had like a cafe kind of thing. I'm sure most colleges have that type of thing, and like a food court area.
Yeah.
And I used to play with friends back then, and that was cool. And like honestly, no one ever bothered us or anything like that. It was really cool. We always just like sat and joked around. And this is before I had one, so at this time I have zero like tops, and we used to play like random decks like Herald of Perfection and things like that, and it was really fun. I mean, and now like I still frequent a college that all my friends kind of go to, where people on Friday nights usually play Yu-Gi-Oh. At Temple University, they have like a game room, and a lot of people go there on Friday nights to like play video games. Like there's like a whole fighting game community scene there. Like some of the best fighting game players in Philadelphia, if not all of them, they all go there. So it's like you have like a bunch of TVs in a room, and then you have a bunch of tables and chairs and duelists. So you have like people playing Street Fighter. The new Street Fighter just came out, or like playing the beta or whatever of that, and then like people playing Smash Bros and Tekken and Soul Calibur and whatever else you can think of. And then you have all the people playing Yu-Gi-Oh in the middle, and some people playing like other card games and Buddy Fight and stuff like that. So it's like a huge like gaming experience. It's almost like Friday Night Magic, but for everything that's not Magic.
That's actually really cool.
Yeah, it's actually really really fun, and I do that every now and then, but on Friday nights, and they stay open for like until like 2 a.m. or something crazy. So it's really cool.
Wow.
So, back on the topic of like events, what would you say your favorite event was, and is there an event that you remember that specifically was so difficult for you?
My favorite event would have to be Long Beach, California, and Vegas. So Long Beach, California, 2012, which was the biggest event of all time. That event, I stayed with Robert Boyagin at his beach house, and it was really, really awesome. I stayed down for like 5 or 6 days with Alistair, and we had like a card. Like he gave us a card to use while he went to school, and we kind of like play tested in Sectors versus Rabbit, and we got a lot of different food, and just like that was my first time going to California and seeing how beautiful it was, and it made me really like want to like live there and just think about like life and stuff like that. So that was my favorite event of all time, definitely. And then yeah, I guess like my second favorite would be Vegas 2014, my first time going to Vegas, and just like that place is also amazing. Like a lot of dry heat, so it's like hot but not unbearable, and there's a lot of shopping, and I love to shop, and a lot of nice like beautiful people, and the city never sleeps. Literally, it's always something to do. It's always going on. Like I couldn't imagine living there because it's always alive. But yeah, it was like that was definitely my second favorite event. And as for most difficult event, most difficult. This honestly like this event that just passed, like this 2016 Atlanta, 15 straight Pepe mirror matches. This was probably my most stressful or hardest event I've ever played in my life. I've never played an event in my entire life where every single round I played the exact same deck. Like every single round. Like it's unreal. Like I almost can't believe like every round I was like, hey, do you have an extra deck? And they're like, oh yeah, I have an extra deck. And I'm like, damn it. And then, like, next round, like, do you have an extra deck? They're like, yeah, I have an extra deck. And I'm like, maybe one of these people is going to be a Cosmo player. Maybe one of them is going to be a Water player. No. Every single time, it's like, oh, summon Joker. And I'm like, yep, another mirror match, another mirror match.
Well,
so, like, the mirror match is really hard, and that made the event, like, pretty hard. So
let's go into in-depth about Atlanta.
Okay.
What... You said you asked all of the Monarch play, or everyone if they had an extra deck. But how do you feel about last format? I know someone made a comment that this format really didn't have anything to like blow it open, kind of like how Hopen took Emptiness and broke that
Right.
event. But there wasn't really a lot of time to break the format. Do you think that format had some type of window that could have been broken open, or do you feel that that format was just ungodly lucky?
How do I want to say this? Because I can see it from a luck perspective, but as all like a lot of good players topped, which is always going to be the case no matter how you look at it. But if I had to say one of the defining factors of that small window, because we only got one event with it, really, I think it just was. I think it just came down to techie cards. A lot of people were teching a lot of, like, Billy was playing like the princesses. He played 44 cards, a lot of trap holes, 2 Rafflesia. Me and Tommy Rowe decided to play counter traps. A couple of the other players decided to play counter traps. I think that my personal reason for success this past weekend was because I decided to play Ariadne and counter traps. Because at locals, when the deck came out, the first build I played was the hand trap build that a lot of people went with, which is like Veilers, Maxis, and Ghost Ogres, or some combination of that. And that build is cool and everything, but when you go first, it kind of just doesn't like... It doesn't have as much pressure, I feel like. But when I was playing around with the Ariadne build, it just seemed like when I went first, I won the game 99.9% of the time because there's nothing you can do to a counter trap in a 5-monster field. It's just too much. Like, you may be able to get through some of it, but you just eventually you're going to end your turn and you just die. Like, and that kind of was like what I realized. I was like, I don't know why everyone's not playing Solemn Strike, and I kind of equate that to maybe it's more expensive because it's an extra $180 to your deck that's already kind of expensive. But I think that if people had more time and the format developed more, I think that after Atlanta, like if we had full power Pepe right now still, I think that people would actually realize how powerful Solemn Strike is and how powerful Ariadne is. Like, those cards are just outrageous. Like, your opponent cannot play the game. So if you summon an Infinity and set like 2 counter traps, and you have like it's not even ever just Infinity. It's like Infinity with Ignister and Rafflesia, or Infinity and Nightmare and like counter traps. It's just too much to deal with 6 cards. You just can't get through it. So I mean, I feel like that was the reason why I won a lot of my rounds, because even going second, the counter traps are really, really powerful. I mean, if your opponent goes first and they summon Infinity on you, and you set like a counter trap and a plush fire, like, it's really hard for them to win through that because they'll try to OTK you. If they pendulum summon, you Solemn Strike and you stop all the monsters that came out, or they try to do something with Infinity and you kill him, and then like you can play your cards, you can Wavering Eyes them because they're open, or catch them in any kind of weird way. So once I realized that like Strike was good going first and second, it just seemed like an easy decision over cards like Max C and Effect Veiler and Ghost Ogre, which I sided all of those cards because after game 1 I would just assume that people would realize, okay, you're playing a counter trap build, so I'm going to side in like back row hate, and I sided out a lot of the counter traps, like the whole engine, and then I would go into like hand trap engine. So if they had like Twin Twisters, for the most part they'd be dead. So there was kind of that whole thing going on.
I pulled up your deck list here for the viewers. Well, what else about your deck really stuck out to you?
I only played 2 damage jugglers. I know a lot of people who played the clowns, they play more than 2. They played 3 usually because of stopping Wavering Eyes. But I decided that I talked to Tommy about this a lot, and we were saying how like Foolish Burial is honestly just a better card than a third juggler because it can be any scale that you need it to be, and it does come up a lot when you open up Luster and Plush Fire, and you will have like Luster Plush Fire, and your hand would be good if you had a low scale, and it's really annoying in like those games where like you just wish you had a low scale. So I was like, Foolish Burial just contributes to having whatever scale you need. So I play 1 Mirror Conductor for the low scale, and there's a bunch of high scales in the deck already. So whenever that happened, I could search for whatever scale I needed. There were the games where you need to search for Hat Tricker because they have like a Rafflesia on the field, and you want to just go summon Joker, Foolish Burial, and get Hat Tricker. And why that is important is because you don't have to use your battle phase to drop Damage Juggler and then main phase 2 search a Hat Tricker. You can do it in main phase 1, Foolish Burial, and search Hat Tricker. So that was important because Damage Juggler in your hand doesn't really do anything, like outside of Stop Wavering Eyes. So I felt like it was just a better card overall. And then the other thing, playing two plush fires. Plush fire originally had it at 3, and then over time you just kind of realize like the card isn't as good as just the Performa Pile engine. It's more prone to getting maxi when you do a Luster plush fire play, and when you get maxied on that, you really can't stop with just summoning like a trick clown or a damage juggler in defense mode and passing. So you much rather that if they're going to maxi, they have to maxi a pendulum summon of 4 or 5. So that way, not only do you not die, you get to clear your scales with Pendulum Sorcerer, and they only draw 1 card, as opposed to going, Luster, Plush, Pop, Maxi, and then they have to draw at least like 1 more card because if you don't get rid of your scales and summon more monsters, you're just going to die next turn. It's really easy to die. So
No, with the way that
that
the
was
deck... Oh, go on.
no, I was done. Go ahead.
With the way that the deck was shaping up, though, definitely Plush and Damage Juggler were cards that weren't even seeing max potential, as you said you were playing 2 of. Do you think that they were really ban-worthy?
Actually, I don't think so. I don't think so. Before the event, there was a point where I wasn't playing clowns at all, and I mean, a lot of people didn't play. Hoban didn't play clowns. A lot of people didn't play clowns. Actually, a lot of people opted for the Armageddonite build. It was like the Dark Pendulum build where you summon like Nightmare consistently turn 1 because Nightmare is extremely hard to deal with. So there was that, and when I saw them get banned on like the advanced list, I just thought it was kind of funny because we were already reaching a point where if we had another event, I probably wouldn't have been playing Perform Mages. Like, if there was an event after Atlanta to play this deck, I'm pretty sure that my deck would have shaped in a way where Perform Mages weren't necessary anymore because we just needed more time to test it, like, test other engines out. And they kind of just, like, clogged for the most part. I mean, outside of being, like, an out to Notori Beast, like, in regards to Hat Tricker, they really don't do too much. So...
I know a lot of the community really hates on Wavering Eyes, but how do you feel about that card still being where it is today, going into the new format?
I really don't like the fact that Wavering Eyes is still a card with less outs to it now. It makes the Pendulum matchup even more awkward. Like, now you're going to see a lot of Master Pendulums and Dynasters to protect your scales because you don't really have a choice. You just can't get Wavering Eyes for 3 and 4. I mean, the card's really obnoxious. It's a really outrageously powerful card, and it does a whole lot. And, I mean, if you go first, like, you're at a disadvantage because not only does your opponent have a higher chance of opening with Wavering Eyes than you do because they, saw 6 cards and you saw 5, but also if you set up scales, like, you're just prone to it. So you have to, like, either not set up scales and not make an optimal play, or set up scales and risk losing the game because your opponent simply drew this card. And one of the things I did at least like about the clowns was that if I went first, I could just hold Damage Juggler in my hand, and I feel safe. Like, I feel extremely safe. I don't have to put a Dynastar on the field when my hand couldn't do that. I could just literally Pendulum Summon and either pop my scales with Sorcerer, or I could leave up a Gui Turtle and have a Damage Juggler in hand. When they go to Wavering Eyes for 3, I'm just like, no. So, I don't know. I don't really like the idea of it being at 3 still with no real out to it but itself. So now we'll have to, like, try to summon Dynastar whenever you want to Pendulum Summon, and it's just really, I don't know. It might not even be worth doing all of it. It might be something better and it works.
Any final comments on the deck? I know before you got kicked out of the venue with Jonathan Moore, you said you wanted to really go into in-depth about the deck and the potential that it had.
Yeah, it really was just the counter trap aspect of it. There's not really like most builds. I'm sure I play 30 of the same cards, or probably like 28 of the same cards, and then you have your spots for tech. It's kind of like Necros. But side decking, I think, was really important. I just started a bunch of 2-ofs, which is 2 Ghost Ogre, 2 Maxi, 2 Veiler, 2 MST, 2 Dark Hole, just a bunch, like 2 Chaos Trap Hole, which, honestly, that was like my favorite side deck card, Chaos Trap Hole, because when it came, I usually win game 1. And if I win game 1, which is great, I get to, choose to go first game 3. And I put in 2 Chaos Trap Holes and I took out my 2 Twin Twisters. And that gives me more counter traps. So there were times where I would go first game 3, and instead of just being able to search 2 counter traps with Ariadne, I would be able to search like 4. And in fact, in one round, I actually did search 4 counter traps because I opened up like Wavering, Ariadne, Luster Pendulum, and that just led to like the most absurd first turn I did the entire tournament. It was like Chaos Trap Hole, strike, with like Infinity and like an Ignister on the field and like a hand of Joker, Monkey Board for next turn. It was just unreal. So like I usually just blew my opponents out in game 3, if it got that far, just with siding in more counter traps or just chaos trap wall. And I also think that card is good against literally every deck, except maybe water, which isn't even a deck. Well, wasn't a deck, I should say, because it might be now, but not then. Monarchs, every monster's light and dark. Cosmo, every monster's light and dark. And the mirror match, the most important monster, Joker, is dark. And even Luster Pendulum. Someone summoned the Luster Pendulum on me after they played Mirror Conductor, and they switched my Infinity. They switched his attack to like 1600, and he summoned Luster Pendulum. And all I had set was a Chaos Trap. I just thought it was really funny because I also had a Rafflesia next to him, but I don't play like Treacherous, so I couldn't really stop an attack if it just came. And he summoned Luster Pendulum, and I was like, I don't even want to use Rafflesia on this. Like, I'm actually going to leave her bottomless trap hole in the deck, and I just Chaos Trap Holed it, and that game was just over after that. Like, he had a scale up. I was able to like Wavering Eyes it because he played Mirror Conductor, and I don't know. It's really just I think side decking was really important. I think playing Strike was important. Winning die rolls always important. I lost a lot of die rolls at the end. It was really annoying. I kept losing die rolls. I started off the tournament. I won a couple. Then I just started losing them constantly. And when I was losing them, people were smart enough to go first. I had one person, I think, say, you go first. And I just was like, all right, well, that's great. But for the most part, people who won the die roll knew that they should be going first with the deck because the deck is absolutely outrageous going first. And I don't care what build you were playing, going first was right no matter what. Because even if you play Maxi and you go first, you summon your 5-monster field, if you have a Maxi, because I will have a counter trap, but you'll have Maxi. That's like the same thing. An established field and a Maxi is equally as much game, I feel like. Because what are they going to do? They have to special summon, and they get Maxi, and the game's just over. Like, you can't stop. I have so many cards, and I have 2 Ignisters on the field or something stupid like that. Like, you can't just pass. So you have to play into it. You have to try to kill me now because I Maxi'd you. And if you don't kill me, you lose, and you probably can't kill me because there's too much going on. So,
well, so many people made the comment as well that the holy grail of the format was finding a build that could function going second.
Right, and I definitely think that both builds that like main decked. If you were main decking Maxi and if you were main decking Strike, I think that you can go first or second just fine because Strike allows some comeback potential that you just don't have with any other card. Like, it's just a card that can really allow you to come back on a first turn field. Like, I came out of some crazy first turn fields just because of Strike. Like, just setting like Wavering Eyes and Strike is broken because you go Wavering Eyes and they go Damage Juggle and you're like Strike and the chain is over. So even if they had an outrageous field, you're like banish your Infinity now. You can't do anything about it. Search on Wavering Eyes, add a Joker. Like, if you got a plush fire set or something, like, you're not going to die that turn, and you just end up living. And it's just like, wow, like, I actually came out of a game where he had so much going on just because I opened like Strike and this other card. So it's really good. There's also like the same thing can happen with Infinity. They try to negate, and then they try to negate your Wavering Eyes with Infinity. You're like Strike, and the chain is just over. No one's playing 7 tools or Wiretap, so it's just guaranteed to go through, and then you just win.
What was your basic first turn play that you wanted to do, typically setting up going first for this last format? It was one of the biggest questions a lot of people had. My
deck, I would shuffle it because I feel like my deck was damn near solitaire. I didn't really need an opponent a lot of the time. I would sit in my room late at night when I'm really tired, and I would just shuffle it and draw hands of 5, like constantly hands of 5, and I would just see what I can do. And literally, like 9 out of 10 of the hands ended the exact same way. It was like Infinity and Nightmare or Rafflesia, and if I drew counter traps, so be it. But if I didn't, like, that was what I ended with, and no scales. I always like end with no scales. And then if there were other hands where if I'm playing against something like I know and it's not Pepe, like if I know my opponent's just playing like something else where I can like not be scared with Wavering Eyes and I can just like kind of OD on the field, I'll do like the Magister Paladin, Ignister, Dynaster with like an Infinity or a Master Pendulum next to it to kind of go with like all of those monsters, because it's like this weird little loop that if you play Pepe, you kind of know what I'm talking about, where you go Ignister first, and then you go into like the Magister Paladin, and then that kind of leads into the Dynaster, and then the Dynaster brings back the Master Paladin, and so you end with like a full field of like all of the like the Prominence or whatever they're called, like the Slayer, the Draco Slayer monsters. You kind of end with all of them on the field, and your scales are protected, and if you have like counter traps. So I usually try to end with Infinity and back rows. If I draw any amount of back rows, I'm summoning Infinity, because it is so hard to deal with back rows in this format, where if you have Twin Twister, like most people didn't main it, I main 2 of it, but if you didn't main it, you have no way to deal with back rows. But if you did main it, like Infinity is telling you, it's like you didn't. Like you don't even have an out to it. Like you twin switch to discard whatever, and I'm like negate, and they're still there, and you still have to get through like a strike or two, and it's just like too. It's just too much. But my basic feel was Infinity Rafflesia or Infinity Nightmare, and any amount of back rows with that.
All
No,
right.
Oh,
Okay, go ahead, Robbie.
now I know a lot of people want to hear about your thoughts on playtesting, and then after playtesting, we'd like to go through the new format and discuss your opinions on decks. But first, let's hit on the hard-hitting question. What do you do for playtesting? What's your circle? Typically, I know you're very busy with your job, but I'm sure you have
Right.
people that help you out and things like that. So
Yep.
give us the rundown on that.
My testing, I consider judging regionals to be part of my testing. Honestly, when I judge, I watch like several matches at a time, and I'm always judging the top tables. So I get to like see the people who are doing the best, and I get to see what they're playing and what their mindset is. Kind of, I can tell like what plays they make. And so I get to see several games at one time. It's kind of like I always say it like this. Have you ever watched Naruto? He does the Kagebushin and he trains with it because he's able to train multiple bodies at a time, and when he cancels it, it's like he gets all the information at once. So I see it as like watching like 6 games at a time and keeping track of what's going on in each of them, how they're progressing. I get to like see all these different scenarios at one time, and I'm like, okay, so this is what happened here, and he could have won if he did this, and he could have won if he did this, and so I kind of just like do that in my head as I'm walking up and down, just like looking at the way the games like progress, and then that really does help me to come up with like what the average player thinks or what like the good players are thinking. And then my other thing I do is I usually watch a lot on Duel Network. I follow a couple of my friends just like when they're playing. I'll just kind of like walk into their duels and watch, and then I'll either coach them or like I'll ask them like why did you do this or why don't you do this or whatever, and that kind of like helps me. And as for actual like playing the game and testing that way, I don't get to do that as much as I used to when I was younger. But I still do every now and then go to locals, and I'll play like a few games in between rounds if I can. But I'm not the fastest player in the world, and usually my rounds are like really close to time. And after that, like I'm like usually either going to like get something to eat real quick, or just like I don't even want to play immediately after that. So what I typically do is I play Yu-Gi-Oh at locals on Thursday nights. I'll sometimes go to the college on Friday nights and I'll play, and then on Saturday and Sunday, I might go to locals. But there's always like that thing where it's like instead of going to locals on like I usually go, I would say 2 times a week, um, unless like there's an event coming up that I really feel like oh I mean I have like a good deck. I just need to make sure that I like really grind and know what the hell I'm doing with it. Like this like before this event, I was going to locals a lot, like Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday type of thing, because I really wanted to do well. And I was like, I think my deck is really good. I need to play more to make sure that I'm not like missing something, like maybe counter traps suck, and I'm not realizing, or maybe like I shouldn't be manning twin twist or something like that. But at my testing, like I just kept winning, and that like really skewed my mind on like what the format was like because I couldn't understand like why other people were having such a hard time when I felt like the format was really simple. It was you summon Infinity and like other monsters, and you just win. Like the card is pretty much banned for a reason. Like it's really hard to deal with, and people would go first on me in actual YCS, and they would just have the opportunity to summon it. They just wouldn't. I don't know why. I guess that like they felt that it was too fragile. I mean, if you summon it by itself, that is fragile, and I've never done that before. I've never summoned Infinity by itself with nothing else. There's always either a back rows or a Nightmare Rafflesia with it because it's just too much to overcome. But people just didn't do that when they went first. They would do like other things that were cool, like a bunch of Ignisters and stuff like that. But that's like really, like you can play out of that. You can actually play out of that kind of easily. So I don't know. It was one of those things where I kind of test by like watching and reading, and I read articles. I'll go on dual screens every now and then and see what that crowd's talking about, and I mean you kind of just like pull ideas from everywhere, and you just think to yourself. You take notes. I put notes on my phone. Especially if I misplay, like I only play at locals. I don't play regionals ever anymore. So when I play at locals, if I misplay, like or if something like if I found out something, I'll pull out my phone afterwards and actually type it like into my phone because I didn't know there was a game I played where I lost because I didn't realize that, for instance, you could make Dynastar with any like pendulum monsters. So I had a lizard draw and like a luster pendulum on the field. I didn't realize that I could just turn those into a Dynaster. This is like the first week when like new deck came out. So I immediately pulled out my phone and was like, okay, well you can make Dynaster with anybody, because that just didn't come to my head. Or like the attack boost from Pendulum Sorcerer can help you go for game. Like I put that in my phone. So I like kind of do that and take like actual notes that like I go back to and I read them and, like periodically. I'm like, okay, so this is something that I can do. You can treacherous trap hole your own Rafflesia if they only summon one monster, type it. Like, it's just weird stuff like that. I'll just like put into my phone. I have like a log of all of these different things that I've learned as I'm going on, and just figuring out like, okay, so this is how you can go into Infinity and this, and if you open these 3 cards, you can end with this field. And so that's like my version of playtesting. Like I don't really get to physically sit down and play as much. Like technical play isn't even emphasized as much right now. It's just all about deck building, I feel like. And technical play, like I come from the old school. Like Feral Servant is like the beginning of the game almost. So when it comes to like technical play, I came from an era where you had to be like really technical to do well. And I was on like the cusp of like before the change to deck building became a thing. I learned how to play technically with like 2011 Plant Synchro. That was like a big format for me where I topped a bunch of times with that deck. And that was like a deck that was based on like technical play. Like you had to really know what you were doing. Like do you summon Tengu? Do you summon Thunder King, or do you summon Tour Guide? And so I just take my technical play from older years and bring it forward. And so I don't focus on that as much as I do with like trying to figure out the right build right now. Like that's kind of like the whole thing.
Now, I'm sure you've heard the term next level magic, the book
Yes.
that most Magic players use. Now, have you actually read that book? How do you feel about it?
No, I have not. How do I feel about? I'm sorry.
How do you feel about like Hoban trying to write his own version of the book for the community, amongst other things?
Oh,
like
I love
that?
the idea. I love the idea. I think it's a really, really good idea because I have not read Next Level Magic, but I talk to Hoban on almost a daily basis, and he tells me a lot of what's in it and like how his book is going. And I've heard Next Level Magic from other players. I used to play Magic for a little while. I hear from my locals that used to have Magic. From what I hear, a lot of the event, like there's not really for a player who's already advanced, it's a lot of common sense. But for an average player, it can take you to like the advanced level. So it's good in that regard. It's like the get you to the advanced level kind of book, which is exactly what people need. A lot of people are just on that. They're like right there, and they just need that extra push to get like to the next level. So I think it's a really good idea to have something that literally brings you to the next level, and to be written by the best player in the world. Like why wouldn't you read it? I feel like everybody should at least read it, unless you're like like one of the best. You don't have you probably don't have to, but I think that even that's stupid to not read it, because you don't know what you can learn. Like you can always learn something, no matter how good you are. You can always learn something from someone else. So I think it's a really good idea that he's written something like that, and I can't wait for it to come out because I will be reading it.
So we have plenty of new players in the community. Is there anything you could, I guess, say in theory or something to help them a little bit? To learn the game, maybe from a basic level to maybe an intermediate level?
I always tell people to actually read. I think it's really important to actually read about the game. It helps so much. You retain so much more information when you read about it. And also executing. Like you need, it's important for, if you're newer to the game or if you're trying to really get better, it is really important for you to play test and literally like physically play test. Not like how I do it, because how I do it is just like completely different now. But to play test and literally play games, and see I always say see what went wrong. Like where was the turning point in that game? Like why did your opponent beat you? You need to know why you lost. Like if you're not, when you lose, if you're not figuring out the reason that you lost, like right after, like I beat myself up badly when I lose. Like I am in my head the entire next like 2 hours. I'm sitting there thinking about like how I lost and what I could have done differently, and if I could have done something differently. A lot of times you can. So don't make the excuse that like, oh, he just had everything. Because a lot of times you thought about what you had, you're like, oh, wow, I actually could have stopped it if I did this instead. Like my top 4, I lost to Tommy Rowe. I could have won game 2 for sure, and I probably could have won game 1 as well. Game 1, he opens up Pleiades, a back row, a Vector Pendulum, and a Luster Pendulum. So he has like scales up, and I have like a good hand of like Monkey Board and things like that. But he has Vector Pendulum on the field, so I can't really play Monkey Board. So I'm like, okay, so I have to figure out a way to get like the the vector off the field, but I also have to worry about the back row. And I know he plays strike. We play like the same deck almost. Like instead of playing Ariadne in Warning, he plays instead of like Max Heats and things like that. So we play like a very similar deck. So I knew that his back row could actually be a strike. And I didn't even consider like, oh, it could be Wavering Guys, and maybe I should not summon my Damage Juggler. But I ended up summoning my Damage Juggler, and then special summoning Hat Tricker, and going into I went into Trapeze Magician. But I could have just chosen to go into like I could have summoned. I drew Mirror Conductor. I could have summoned Mirror Conductor, special Hat Tricker, and gone into Trapeze Magician. And I know he's going to bounce. No matter what I bring out, he's going to bounce it. So I know that's going to happen. And after that happens, I can set my scales up. And if he has Wavering Eyes, I will have the Juggler for it. So for some strange reason, instead of doing that, I summoned my Juggler and left myself open. So when I passed my turn, he drew and flipped his face down Wavering Eyes and killed me. And after the game, I'm like, wow, I could have actually like stopped because his hand wasn't that good. Like if you open Pleiades and just the back row, that's not really ideal. There was no Joker involved. There was no Monkey Board. There was no drawing extra cards with V-Turtle and Lizard Draw. It was just like a very 2015 Pepe, it looked like. And I could have definitely beaten him with my hand if I look back at it and I would have played the game better. And then game 2, I could have won game 2 as well because I opened up Infinity, Dynastor, Warning, and Strike. And that, no one has gotten out of, my hands when I open like that. But he ended up drawing. What you need to get out of those kind of hands is you need a lot of luck, and you also need to draw a lot of spell cards. And the reason why you need luck is because you have to hope to God that your opponent does not negate the linchpin of your hand. Like, every hand has a part where if they negate it, it's over. Like, you just lose because, if he negated the face-off here, that was game. I needed that face-off to go through. Or if he stopped my Joker, if he stopped my Joker right now, I needed the Joker to go through because if I didn't get the Joker to go through, then, my whole hand was dead. I didn't have the right scales or whatever the case may be. So you draw those hands where, you need to get lucky and hope that your opponent negates the wrong card or doesn't negate just doesn't negate the right card, basically. And then you also need to have drawn spell cards because drawing all monsters is the quickest way to lose when your opponent has a Solemn Strike set because all you can really do with them is summon them all and then you just get striked and they all go to the graveyard. So he drew Twin Twister, Wavering Guys, and Draco Face Off. And I had to negate Twin Twister because he targeted my back row. But what I should not have done was I should not have used Solemn Warning on his Joker because I had been preaching about the way to use the counter traps is to use them on absolutely nothing. You don't use them on a single thing until your opponent tries to pendulum summon. You let them do whatever the hell they want. If they want to summon Joker, that's fine. They want to do Luster Plush Fire, that's fine. They want to do whatever they want to do, you let them do it. And as soon as they try to pendulum summon any amount of monsters, you're just like, no. And that's the end of their turn. And then that's when they die. So for some strange reason, in top 4, I decided that I didn't want to win. And he summoned Joker, and I warned it, thinking that he'll probably just scoop because he knows I have a strike because I searched it. So I still have a strike and an Infinity, and he can't Wavering Guys because of my Dynastor on the field. And he ends up playing all of his cards, and it slowly just gets out of hand with he plays face off and gets the Luster Pendulum. Then he Plush Fires, and then everything just starts to slowly fall apart. And I realized oh wow! And then at the end he Pendulum summons 5 monsters, and I'm I could have definitely stopped this entire thing if I just held on to my warning. None of this would have happened, and it would have definitely went to game 3. And then I might have been your YCS Atlanta champion. So I thought about that for a while and how I could have won both of those games if I had played better. And I wrote a status right after saying I probably could have won if I played better. So a lot of times you just have to think about, if you're new, really think about how you lost the game because that matters so much. It doesn't matter how you win. A lot of times you win from whatever you might have set up an ignorant field and they couldn't break it or you drew something off the top, whatever. But losing is it's the biggest learning experience that you can ever have in this game. You lose and you can say okay, I had this and you had this. So if I played it in this way, you couldn't have won now in this scenario. So you just have to really think about that all the time. What did I do that made me lose? Or what did he do to put me in a losing position?
Now, many players ask, when do you feel that the jump from advanced to pro happens? From your own personal standpoint to just a typical player.
I wrote an article a long time ago called Breaking Mental Limitations. And for me, after I got my first top, because here's what doesn't make sense to me. Okay, I played the game for 5 years, from 2005 or whatever, even before 2003 maybe, up until 2010 when I got my first real top. And I hadn't topped anything before that, but all of a sudden, after I won and topped, I started I topped Charlotte the next year, really earlier in the year, March, and then I topped another event, then I topped another event. So I ended up with 5 tops in 11 months, going from 0 in 7 years, which doesn't really make sense to me So I had to think about it, like, why is that? Like, what happened? Like, what's the difference? Well, there's a couple things that happen. You start to get free wins from people out of intimidation because when you sit down and they know who they're playing against, that automatically makes people play differently. They just go into their head, and so you get those free wins. But then also, you as a person, because you already know what it's like to be in that top spot, you don't have all of the pressure that comes with someone who's never done it and like they really really want to so badly and are so close to it, but now their nerves are getting to them and they've never experienced it before. You just have that kind of like that mental block, like, oh, I can't do this, I've never done it before, I've been on a bubble before but I always lose. You kind of put that on yourself, and I think that once you break out of that, you kind of you just take a deep breath and you say, okay, this is, I've been doing this, like I play tested for this, I know what I'm doing, I know my deck is good, I built it, I've come this far, I can do this. And you kind of just like break the mental limitation. I think that it's different for everybody. Some people I took a very long time to ever do well in Yu-Gi-Oh. I mean, I've been playing for so long, and only in the last 6 years maybe have I become like a relevant player. And before that, I was literally just a person who could top some regionals, and that was it. So I think that it's different for everybody, but you really have to. The change definitely happens when you believe in yourself. Like I definitely believe, as cliche as it sounds, you really do have to like believe that you are good enough to top. But you also have to not be like, don't be arrogant and cocky about it. Like a lot of people can take that what I said wrong and then just go around saying like, oh yeah, I'm the best, or I'm good at this game and I know I'm good at this game, because that kind of mindset is also just like really toxic for your advancement. Like you won't get anywhere if you already think that you're the best or you already think that you're too good. You have to still like believe in yourself, but you also have to be humble enough to understand that you still are learning and you need to learn as much as you can, because every one thing you learn will help you to win a game. And you might end up learning over my course of playing the game for 12 years or whatever. I have 20,000 things probably that I know in my head that are like, in this specific scenario, I know to do this that a normal player wouldn't know because of all of my years of experience just coming out and being like, okay, this is that exact scenario that used to be a big thing in 2005. I always go back to like back in the day, you used to go brain control, take someone's monarch or monster in general, but usually their monarch, you attack with it, and then you tribute it off for like Riser or Thestalos. And what will end up happening is you go brain control and you take it. So now that's like you lost brain control and they lost their monster. So you're both like a kind of even like card advantage. And then you attack with it. They like Sakuretsu armor it. They're down a card now, so they're like -1 because they lost Sakuretsu armor and their monarch, and all you lost was brain control. So learning to do little things like that to like gain advantage was like a huge thing. So then later on in life, when it came down to like taking people's monsters with enemy controller, when you used to go summon Torgod, summon Sangan, enemy controller, take your monster, and like you swing with it and they like activate something, you're like, sweet, I got a +1 off of that. Like just little things like that, like those little interactions that I remember from like 2006 and 2007 and all the way up until now, they carry forward. It's like a wealth of knowledge just constantly carrying forward. So you have to be able to like always keep an open mind to learning new things, and you have to believe in yourself. And I think it just comes down to that. You'll eventually get there.
If only card advantage still mattered, right?
Right. It really, yeah. It does not matter nearly as much as it used to.
Now,
yeah.
We were talking about Hoban earlier. In terms of pro players in the game, who do you like talking to? Who's your favorite?
My favorite pro players to talk to in the game are Pat, Sean McCabe, who I grew up with, and Silverman. I like talking to Silverman. He doesn't really play as much anymore, but he has like probably like 10 or 11 tops or something like that. And he won like a while ago in 2009, like right before I won. Or no, he won in 2010 actually. He won the same year I won. And he plays multiple card games. He's extremely smart when it comes to understanding card interactions, and he just kind of like knows things that most Yu-Gi-Oh players wouldn't know because he plays like other card games. I think that playing other card games helps you to understand Yu-Gi-Oh better. So like I don't think that it's coincidence that the year I started to play Magic the Gathering was also the year that I won in Yu-Gi-Oh. It's because I played that game, and when I came back to Yu-Gi-Oh, I kind of like applied some of the logic that I learned from Magic the Gathering to Yu-Gi-Oh, like just how to manage my resources. Like resource management was a huge, in Magic that's like a huge thing, just managing resources. And so when I came back to Yu-Gi-Oh, it was like, okay, like how can I manage my resources better? And so I think that those are the three players, like Sean McCabe, Pat, and who's there when I said Sean McCabe, Pat, and Silverman. Those are like my three main go-to guys as far as pro players who I always talk about stuff, and like I'll share my deck list and we'll talk about like why do you play this, or maybe you should be playing this, or does this come up a lot, and that whole thing.
My friend Fulfer texted us a question here. He wants to know why Yu-Gi-Oh overall card games.
It's just the one that I grew up with. It's because it had a TV show, honestly. I think that is the best part about Yu-Gi-Oh! I think that is the part that draws kids in, is the fact that unlike Pokemon, the trading card game, unlike Magic the Gathering, unlike Hearthstone and Buddy Fight, they, like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has had a cartoon since I was a kid. And that allure of being young and wanting to actually play the same cards that you saw on TV still applies today. Like, how many kids do you know love the cards they see in the show specifically, no matter how bad they are? They love the show. Like, they want the cards from the show. And those cards will be expensive because of that. Like, you'll have cards that aren't actually competitively good, like a lot of the heroes from GX. They suck. But because of the show, like, people wanted them. And I think that is the reason why I got started in Yu-Gi-Oh! And I think that whatever card game you start with, you kind of just, like, stay with for a while, no matter if you like it or not. Like, some people complain about Yu-Gi-Oh!, but they play it because they grew up with it and they just can't let go of it. Or they'll switch over to something else, but they play Yu-Gi-Oh! Still the longest they ever played anything else. So I think it's just, like, mainly the show brought me into it, and that's the reason why I keep playing. I don't really play card games for prizes because, like, I have an actual career, and I feel like if you wanted to make money, you are playing the wrong card game no matter what card game you're playing, unless it's like poker. If you're not going to go for poker or something serious in a casino, then you probably shouldn't be playing card games to try to become like financially stable off of it. Like, if you wanted to be financially stable, you can do that with an actual career, or you can own a store. You could do Yu-Gi-Oh! In the store. But as far as playing for prizes and playing for money, I hate when people say things like I play Magic because the prizes are better, or or because I'll make my living off of playing. Like, you don't really, like, very few people can say they make their living off of playing Magic. That is a very small percentage of everyone who plays Magic can do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think
So
that
moving on into oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to ask you a question about the upcoming format and what your thoughts were on Pepe, Cosmo, Monarchs, Water.
I think that you can actually play those decks now. See, before this week, I was so adamant about being against every deck that was not Pepe. I mean, I was so ridiculously, like, serious about how bad every deck was in comparison. When I go to locals, everyone who was not playing Pepe, and, like, they had a reason why they were playing Monarchs or Water or Cosmo or whatever, I just, like, explained to them, like, this deck is tier 0. It's not very often we get a tier 0 deck. Like, Nekroz was pretty much just tier 1 because it could lose the Burning Abyss, and it did lose the Burning Abyss kind of often. Like, if you go back and look at all the wins that Nekroz had and all the wins that Burning Abyss had, like, I mean, Burning Abyss won our nationals and won a couple foreign YCS. Like they both went back and forth. Nekroz obviously still won more because it's still the better deck, but, like, it was opposed. If Pepe was around for as long as Nekroz was, I think that every single event will be won by Pepe, just on the strength that it's not tier 1, it's tier 0. Like, there's nothing close to it. Like, the advantage it gets going first, the advantage it gets going second, the OTK ratio going first or going second. I consider OTKing you. If I just get counter traps and an affinity, like, you're OTK. Like, you're not going to get to play. So, like, the deck is so outrageously broken that it can beat, like, most decks in Yu-Gi-Oh's history. Like, it can go backwards and beat, like, most decks. So it's just, like, one of those things where I was adamant about, like Monarchs, as cool as, like, it has a lot of good cards in it. And as cool as all of them are, it doesn't matter when you're facing down counter traps. When you're facing down Infinity and, like, a bunch of other monsters that are huge, you can deal with some of them, but you can't deal with all of them. And even if you deal with all of them, I can summon all of them back next turn. Like, it's just so much. Cosmo's the same thing. Like, if I draw one Twin Twister, you lose the game. Like, the game is over. Even if you open up 10 can and, like, 2 back rows, which happens often, it's like, okay, you open up 10 can, 2 back rows, I Twin Twister and I kill you. Like, it didn't matter that you opened up that, because this card came out that now makes back rows kind of bad, and your back rows are protected, unlike mine. And if I go first, I win the game 100% because you can't even do anything when I go first and I just summon, like, 5 monsters. You can get, like, maybe 2 of them off the field, but you're not going to be able to get all of them. And you might not even be able to get 2 of them off the field. So it just I was adamant about not playing anything before, like, when Pepe was at full power. Now that it's not at full power, I've been tinkering with a lot of stuff on DN and just trying to, like, build decks, because building decks is one of the things that I like doing, but I'm not the best at. So I always have to go through like a long process of just kind of playing with it and thinking about my card choices a lot, and then talking to other good players about them and figuring out like what works for them and what might work for me. Because I'm always like I'll take someone else's advice, but I always have to like figure things out for myself, no matter what other people say. Because sometimes you can I've played this game long enough where I've been led down the wrong path because of people's card choices, and I'm like, oh, I thought this was good, but it actually just wasn't, and I shouldn't listen to this person. So I always say I take everything with a grain of salt. And right now, um, Pepe is it's not really even Pepe anymore. It's all about like face off and the master pendulum and summoning multiple dynasters and that whole bit. But it might not even be like uncontested anymore because like Cosmo didn't get touched at all. Like as much as I hate Cosmo, as much as pretty much every good player besides like Jeff hates Cosmo, um, like that deck is it's a problem. It's a real problem, and it's going to be really hard to deal with that deck with having one Luster Pendulum when they have a card called Cosmojo, which can banish that one Luster Pendulum. So you're forced to play things like Mass Chameleon again, which sucks. Like I hate playing that card. I didn't like 2015 Pepe at all because it was just an inconsistent deck. And if that's what Pepe is trying to revert back into, that's not good. So I just think that it's going to definitely be opposed now. You won't open up as broken now. Like going first, you won't have as much of a ridiculous board, and even if it is the best deck, it'll still be annoying because it's just a inconsistent version of the best deck, which is kind of what happened to Necros in like ARG format. It was like this is still like the best deck, but it's just an inconsistent version of itself. So like yes, like this is the deck that every good player should still be playing, but it can actually lose to everything because it doesn't have like all of its cards, like it doesn't have all of its shorts, or it doesn't have all of its unicorns, or it doesn't have all of its whatever, like Trishula's banned, and that's like a huge thing. So whatever, like I feel like they did that to the deck. They kind of like neutered it to the point where it's probably still the best deck, but it's going to be a less consistent version of it. Because let's face it, if you have to play double Vector Pendulum and multiple Master Pendulums, those are normal monsters. And I don't care how you cut it. Opening up a bunch of them is not what you want. So like even opening up two of them is like not what you want. So playing a deck with a bunch of normal monsters in it is probably not going to be the most consistent thing you've ever played, and that I think will definitely affect the viability of the deck. But then at the same time, that's kind of good because we had 29 Pepe decks in top 32, and I played 15 straight in the tournament, which I've never had that happen to me before. So I feel like it's kind of good that we do get the chance to innovate and be creative and figure out new things, and maybe decks like Magic Specters can come back to being playable, and maybe even like Builds of Satellar Knights might be playable, and the Cyber Dragon deck might be playable, and Mermails, and a counter trap deck with Ariadne and something like that could be playable, and Burning Abyss can be playable again. Just a bunch of decks that right now like they're playable again, and they just were not literally 4 days ago. They were not playable 4 days ago. They were just bad. They were just bad decks, just subpar.
You get to ride the Corey McDuffie dream of playing the same deck to top.
Oh, what happened?
I said you got to do the Corey McDuffie dream of having one deck geared towards one matchup and having total success with it.
Oh, did that happen to him when he won nationals?
Quite some time ago, he built Scythe Control geared towards, I believe it was the Necros matchup, and
Okay.
he didn't get the chance to play it all day. So
That sucks.
I definitely think having one deck consistently played against, the better you get going into the tournament. You know.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. I definitely did. I will elaborate on that just a little bit. I definitely did learn as I was playing the tournament, like as I was playing Atlanta, because I kept playing mirror matches over and over. You definitely start to learn some things, like siding choices. I started to side differently. Like at first, I was siding when I would go second, and I know I was going second. I was siding both Dark Holes and Regeki. After I played around where I drew like too many of that type of card, like just mass destruction. I lost the game because I just drew too much of it, and I was like, you know what? I'm just not siding two Dark Holes and Raigeki against the mirror match ever again. Like I'm just siding one Dark Hole and one Raigeki, and if I don't draw it and they make a big field, oh well. But I refuse to also just lose the game because I just drew too much of it. So I will only side in like double Dark Hole and Raigeki if I played against something like Monarchs that could like flood me out with a Monarch and the field spell or a Majesty's Fiend and Vanity's Fiend. As fate would have it, I didn't get to play anything else, but you know what I mean.
how do you feel about Konami having released Monarchs as an easy to get grabbed for budget players to get back into the game?
I think it's a great idea. I actually have one of my friends who hasn't played in a long time coming back because I told him that you can pretty much spend $30 and you can actually get a decent deck. And this Friday, Wing Raiders comes out and it'll be an even better deck. And I don't think the cards in the Wing Raiders will be that expensive. So like you'll like with pretty much like with $100, you should be able to come back in a Yu-Gi-Oh and be okay with what you need. Like I think you'll have everything you need with $100, which is pretty much unheard of because you usually need an extra deck, and an extra deck by itself can cost you a couple hundred. Not let alone your main deck. But Monarchs, thank God, doesn't need an extra deck at all. So it's kind of cool that literally buying 3 structure decks and maybe a few other cards that aren't that expensive, you can put together an entire deck, and it can be actually competitive. So yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea from a business standpoint, and I think it's a great idea from as a player. You know, I see it from both angles because like having gone to business school, I understand why Konami does some of the things they do from the business aspect, and then I also understand from a player's perspective the things that we want when they do happen. I understand like why they happen or why they don't happen because maybe this is hurting the business side of it if this happens. So I agree with the Monarch structure deck. I think that it's a good idea.
Now, you were from an era of teams. How do you feel about the way teams are structured in the current game? Would you like to see more teams in the competitive scene? What's your opinion
Yes,
on that?
I am. I am definitely a fan of that era of like Comic Odyssey, Overdose, Nexus, Hunger Friends, and Super Friends and stuff like that. Like those, I grew up, and that was one of the coolest things to me was that there were groups of people of broken players that came together and would go out and top and win events. And like it was something that when as I was growing up and playing the game, I always wanted like to be on one of those outrageous teams. Like I aspired to like be. I wanted to be on Overdose like when I was young. You know what I mean? Like you wanted to be on the best team. So like I would see like Adam and Iman and Shane and Paul and all of those guys, and I would say like that's that's what I want to do. Like I want to be as good as those guys, and I want to be on the best team in the world. So you kind of you form a team with your own friends and you try to get better. And then at some point, like Konami just kind of stopped focusing on like when they came in, like they just kind of didn't care about the whole like team aspect that UDE like they actually focused on it like that was a thing. Like they would actually start off a feature match saying, we have Iman here from Overdose facing off against this guy from Comic Odyssey, and these teams have fought many times and they've won this many events against each other, and like it was cool. Like, it was actually a cool thing to see in the group photos and all of that. And I thought that was one of the most alluring things about Yu-Gi-Oh was the fact that there was something to aspire to, like a pro player, was just something to like really aspire to. It was such a cool thing, like a goal, and I would love if that came back. Like I actually liked the idea of being on ARG for that very reason, because I don't know if you remember, but ARG started off with like it had Jeff, Billy, Robert Boyajin, Alistair, me, Hoban. And like a bunch of people, like Alex Van Sant, like there were just infinite people who were really good on the team, and it felt cool to like be part of something like that again, to be part of that for the first time and be considered the best team in the game at that time. Like it was actually cool to be like the Overdose of that time.
Now let's take a sec to look back on Gravekeepers, because quite a few people have been asking about it. But what do you feel Gravekeepers need now, and what was it like to top with Gravekeepers?
I guess I'll start with the second question first. What was it like to top with Gravekeepers? I went 8-2 that event, and I got like 24th place, I think, or 18th place, one of those. I don't remember, but I know it was like one of the. I know if it was top 16, I would not have topped. I remember that much. And I almost lost my last round to Lightsworn after he like milled a bunch of wolves. So I was really scared. And when they didn't call my name, like the first like 16 people, I was like really nervous. Like, oh god, I'm one of those people who like went 8-2, but like did not top, like just because of tiebreakers. And when they called my name, like it was one of the best feelings in the world because it was also my first time ever topping. And like I literally started thanking God. Like I was literally like I was jumping up and down, like I was screaming. Like my one friend Kareem was standing next to me, and I was like, I finally did it. Like I finally did it. Like I was ecstatic. Like I was pretty much like the happiest I've been in years. I was so happy, and in my head I kept saying like, I finally topped. Now all I want to do is make it to top 16, and I'll be happy with just that. Like I was like I just set a small goal. I just want to win top 32. I don't want to just immediately get in the top 32 and lose. I want to say I top 16 in an event. So then I won top 32. And after I won top 32, I was in top 16. I was like, okay, this is cool. Then as I'm playing top 32, I'm like, I just want to win this and then get the top 8 and just be like, okay, I top 8 in an event. Like I top 8 at my first like YCS. And then after I won top 8, it's like, okay, now I kind of like I want a top 4. And then every round just kept like that kept happening. Like I kept on saying like I just want to do the next round and the next round and the next round. And eventually, next thing I knew, I looked over and I see like McKay playing against my friend Ronald. Like those two are playing against each other, and I look at my opponent Brandon Wigley, and this is it. Like all the people that came to the tournament, these are the 4 people who are left, and I'm playing top 4 against Sabres, which is pretty much a bye. And I won game 1 with Royal Tribute like really fast. Like it was literally probably like 2 seconds. Like I think I think it's a paragraph on the actual page. So I went with Royal Tribute like turn 1 really quick. I discard his whole hand and I win. And then I'm thinking to myself like, I'm going to be in the finals. The question is, who am I going to be in the finals against? And I hear like McCabe lost game 1. So I was like, oh man, like if McCabe loses to Ronald and I have to play Ronald, like I'll probably just win the event because McCabe, the creator of the deck, he like really understood everything. Like there was like he beat a harder matchup, whereas like I could actually have a chance of beating Ronald as opposed to having a much harder chance of beating McCabe. So I was like hoping that like Ronald won, so I would like be able to win. And then after I beat Brandon, come to find out, McCabe did win, and I was like, wow, this is awkward because the night before, like we always travel together, so like we stayed in the same hotel room and everything. He was like, do you want to play test a mirror match? And I was like, nah, like that seems kind of like irrelevant. Like I don't think we'll have to do that because we won't play the mirror match. Like it's just not like there's no one else playing Gravekeepers. There was a few people, but they all like scrubbed out. So I was like, even if like we both top, because you know you play like a few rounds the first day, and then the second day you play the next 7 rounds. Like I have to win both my rounds, you know, day 2, and I think he had to win both his rounds as well. And I was just thinking like, there's no reason to play test a mirror match of a deck that no one is playing, and we're not likely to play each other. And as fate would have it, we end up playing each other in the finals, and it didn't feel like anything because he's like one of my best friends, and we go everywhere together. We played for years. I've known him since I was like 13, and he was 13. It's like one of those things where it just, I don't know, it was really cool. And I also played Jerry Wang that event, and when I played Jerry Wang, after I beat him, he said, can I see your deck? And I like, yeah, gave it to him, and he like went through it really quickly, like just like kind of quick, like glance through all 40 cards. And he goes, I'm playing this deck. And he like shook my hand and walked away. And it, like he was like, he even called the judge over after getting Royal Tribute because he couldn't believe that a card like that would like had existed. Like it doesn't even make sense. He was like, is this like, does he need a hand to play this? Like, is there any stipulation on it? Like how is this a card? And he's like, all right, well, I lose. Like I lose. Congrats. Like I hope you do well. And let me just see real quick. And he looked at it and he was like, all right, I'm going. And that was it. So it felt really good to top that event and have to play against one of my friends. And as for what Gravekeepers need now, that's a tough question, honestly, because we're in a pendulum era, and it would be easy to just say they need a pendulum like whole mechanic going for them. I'm not really sure what they need. Something like a Nepta Abyss. They need like a couple broken cards that generate a lot of advantage for a little. So just with a little sacrifice, they generate a lot of advantage. Like Nepta Abyss is literally just you're giving up your normal summon, but you go +2. You send one, you search, and then you search one from just his effect. So like a card that literally says give up your normal summon to get like 2 more cards. Gravekeepers would need something like that. Maybe a card that searches like Necro Valley and a monster at the same time, like something crazy, like absurd like that. They would also probably need Royal Tribute to go back up. And if Royal Tribute went back up, honestly, if Royal Tribute went to 3 right now, Gravekeeper would be absolutely ridiculous. That card is still not okay. In fact, if you look at most deck lists, I mean, people are playing like 25, 27, 30 monsters. So you would just lose. Like you would just lose. You would just lose if you got Royal Tributed. It's kind of silly how broken that card like still would be. I don't know what kind of support they can really make for it because it's a deck that sets a monster, and that's not really good in Yu-Gi-Oh! Like setting Spy now as opposed to 2010 when I was doing it just doesn't work out anymore. So I don't really know. They would have to almost do like some kind of Neo Gravekeeper deck where like the Legendary 6 Samurais came out and they're not really Samurais at all. They're just kind of like a broken archetype that they call it Samurais. It's kind of the same way I feel about Monarchs. Like this is not like really Monarchs. Like their structure deck, they call it Monarchs, but those are just good cards. Those are just good cards that happen to be called Monarchs. Like they do some outrageous things. And I just think that there's like a deck of good cards and they call it Monarchs. but it's not actually how Monarchs used to feel back in the day when you were like Soul Exchange, tribute your monster, summon a Monarch, attack for 24, pass. It's like, no, I can kill you now, and if I don't kill you, I can lock you out of the game, which is something that Monarchs never really did. This is like a completely different take on the deck. So if they did that, I'm not even sure if it would really be considered like Gravekeepers anymore. It'd be like some kind of Neo deck. So I don't know.
Shout out.
Going back a little bit, the whole team thing, like in Japan, they have 3v3 tournaments. Do you think that that would work well over here in like a premier event environment?
Well, I have a question for that because I don't really know how that works. So, like, when you say 3v3, is it like how our side events are, like here in the United States, where we like
Yeah,
sit
basically,
down, like
how the side events are.
Okay, so, I think that would be cool to have like a tournament where it's a team tournament because theoretically, just theoretically speaking, if your team is full of good players, even if you lose, technically you will probably still win that round because you have two other people who are good carrying you forward. So I think that it would definitely bring out a lot of good champions, I feel like, because the teams could be ridiculous. I mean, imagine like Jeff, Billy, and Robbie on one team, or like Pat and like Ben and like maybe like his best friend like Desmond or something like on one team. Like that's just like really cool because you get like people who you actually play test with, and people that you actually talk to. You guys kind of all get to put your mind together in a play. So I think it would be cool. Like Jim did it once at ARG Philly, where he had a 3v3 tournament. And McCabe actually won that event with his team, and he won like the giant hand, I think it was at the time. So I think it's cool. I think it's actually just a really cool thing to have. And it would be cool if they had that over here, just like a team tournament 3v3 thing. I mean, they do 3v3 events, so surely they know it's possible. But I guess that they might be worried about attendance, or maybe there's some other logistical things they have to worry about where they haven't actually decided to do it. But they did a draft event, so maybe they will one day do a 3v3 event. I don't know.
Now we're getting down to the time to our viewers can ask questions. Some of the ones we've been asked so far. What is your favorite deck of all time?
My favorite deck of all time. Let me. What would be my favorite deck of all time? See, most people would expect me to shotgun Gravekeepers, but like that, as broken as that deck was, it was just that. It was so outrageous that, like that was a tier 0 deck. It didn't really require much. I guess my favorite deck of all time would probably be Plant Synchro from 2011. Like, I really liked that deck. I also liked that format. I liked the idea of sitting down in front of my opponent, no matter who it was, and I felt like the decisions that I made and the technical play that like I brought to the table like really determined the outcome of my games. Like, I topped Toronto and Kansas City with that deck, and I felt like every round I was winning because of my ability to play the game better than my opponent. And that feeling hasn't been around in Yu-Gi-Oh! For quite some time. It's more so like, well, I have this deck where either you can't play, or I have a deck that's just so outrageous that even though you can play, it doesn't really matter because I drew these better cards, or I just have a better deck build than you, and that's kind of it. And I personally like the idea of outplaying someone, just being better than the person and winning because of that, as opposed to just having like a better deck than that person and then beating them because of that. So I don't. I would say that 2011, when like Plant Synchro was the best deck, was like my favorite deck of all time, just because of how good it felt. And also Dragon Rulers. I loved Dragon Rulers. I felt really in control, but that format deteriorated really quick. Like, I'm talking about the second one when the babies weren't around. That format got really stale. Like, at the end of it, it was like really bad. Like, I was playing against like other people, and I was losing because it had been around for so long that everyone kind of knew what they were doing, and it wasn't that hard. But at first, like when people really didn't understand completely what they were doing, it was really fun, and I thought it was really skillful. But after a while, it just kind of deteriorated into like, I know how to summon Blast and Redox as my first summon and not get Maxine and lose also. I know how to not get Crimson Bladed also. I know how to, draw return also. Like, so it was one of those things where it started out really good, and it kind of just like staled out like most formats do. But I think Plants, like people, if I went back and played like a lot of the people who consider themselves good right now, if we went and played Plants, I feel like I'd beat a lot of them because of the fact that technically, like, I can play better. And I think that's really cool to be able to do that. So that'd be my favorite deck of all time.
Someone also asked what deck you'd like to play again at full power.
Pepe. I only had one event with it, and I actually acquired all the cards. So I feel like it's really annoying that right now I'm staring at my deck box, and there's a deck inside of it that I can't touch, and I've only touched it once. I've only really played it once. I played it at locals, obviously, but I only got one event with it, and it just kind of feels crappy that already I'm like, oh well, that's the end of that. I got one event with it, so I don't agree with them destroying it that much. I think that some of the changes needed to happen. You can't have 29 of a deck in top 32 because the next event, you'd surely have 32. I guarantee if there was another event, you'd have 32 Pepe because everyone would just try to play Pepe. Everyone. You'd have everyone in the tournament playing Pepe, and you'd have Jeff Jones playing something that goes against Pepe. But everyone else is going to play Pepe at the next event, and it's just going to be 32 of it. And then at that point, it's like, what just happened to the game? We're playing one deck. So I think that it did need to get hit. I do not agree with hitting it to the point where, there's one Luster Pendulum and one Monkey Board. I think those two things are not necessary. I think that you can just, do other stuff to it. You can touch other cards. Joker, yes. 1 to Joker, that's fine. Things like that, those are fine. But just outright destroying it the way they did, I just don't think was necessary, and I don't think it's fair to people who really put their money into it and they already lost so much of it. It just kind of makes you not want to buy cards almost. It kind of just makes you feel why would I buy the best deck if this is going to happen to it? I'm sorry I didn't buy Monarchs. I'm sorry that I wanted to play the better deck, and now it got hurt. I personally do not care one way or another how much the deck costs because I have a sponsor and I always get cards anyway. But for people who that actually does matter to, I feel like it just sucks for them. I put myself in their shoes. I think about it. I know people who spent a lot of money. I even posted a picture. My friend spent $1,000 getting the deck. I'm not saying that's a smart thing to do. I'm not saying that's anyone's fault, but he did, and he didn't expect that 2 weeks later, 2 weeks, he can't play it anymore. 2 weeks. That's just ridiculous. And it just came out. I can see if it was out for a year, he came back and he bought it. And I was like, hey, you probably shouldn't buy this. It's been out for a while. I wouldn't tell somebody that came in on Necros at the end to buy Necros because I knew Necros was going to get destroyed. Don't buy Valks and Bryonics at ridiculous prices when the deck has been out for 8 months. And I'm it's probably going to get destroyed. But 2 weeks? 2 weeks? That's unheard of. So I don't know. I don't really like that whole thing. I would that would be so to answer the question, if I could play a deck at full power again, it would be Pepe.
Someone wanted to know your opinions on ice barriers. That means all the bad ones and then the good ones called Bryonic, Trish, okay, and Gungnir.
Well, all the synchros are outrageous, and they've contributed to some of the most degenerate things in the game, including FTKs, OTKs, and KKKs. I think that ice barriers outside of the synchro monsters, they're not anything. They just kind of suck. I remember at one point in Necros format, I was playing Mirror of the Ice Barrier. I just find it funny that none of the ice barrier monsters really see much play except the one guy that can pop. He was able to break Genlocks. I'm not really sure what he did. He was a spellcaster, but you could tribute him and destroy a monster on the field. And people were using that to kind of break the Genlock at one point. You could search another one of it or something weird like that. But other than that, just the synchros. Just the synchros. Let's be real.
Someone else also asked how old you are.
26. I age every November. 25th is my birthday, so I just turned 26 November 25th.
You are quite successful for your age.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Now, what other hobbies do you have outside of Yu-Gi-Oh?
Like I said, I do like anime. I'm currently watching Sword Art Online for the first time. I'm on season 2 of that. Every year I watch every single movie that's nominated for Oscars. So that's kind of a hobby of mine. I watch all of the critically acclaimed movies. So I'm watching The Revenant and The Big Short and The Martian and Room and Carol and The Danish Girl and every movie that's nominated every single year. I watch every single one of them. If it's nominated for everything that's nominated except for best the ones that are CG. I don't really care for I'm not going to watch all the Frozen type movies the Pixar movies. I don't really care for those. But anything else. Best actor, best supporting actor, best actress, best supporting actress, best picture, best adaptation. I watch every single one of those movies every single year. That's like one of my hobbies that I do. But that's only like a short window. So like I do it before the Oscars actually come on, and I kind of make my own decisions on what I thought was the best. And then after that, I watch the Oscars and I see what actually happened, who actually won. So there's that. So there's anime, there's movies. Um, I write. I mean, I write on my own personal time. I write articles, and I also write like I have a novel that I've been writing since like 2 years ago, and I'm kind of into like the whole fantasy like genre. I used to read Twilight and Harry Potter and The Hunger Games, like all of the main like the popular fantasy novels. I used to read all of those, and Game of Thrones I'm currently reading right now, and I'm on like the fourth book of that. That's something that takes up a lot of my time. I really love the books. I'm a huge Game of Thrones fan, and I like good TV shows. Like I like Homeland, comes on Showtime. I like Dexter when that was on air. Mad Men is my favorite show of all time. I think it's the best show of all time. Um, I think it actually won best show on TV like for 5 seasons, 5 out of 7 seasons, or 4 out of 7 seasons, or something like that. I like Mad Men. Breaking Bad was okay. Um, yeah, I like a lot like Oz. I go back and watch like old stuff too. I want to watch The Wire, The Sopranos. I haven't seen those. Um, but yeah, I'm a TV buff. Like I kind of like to watch like good TV, and I like to watch movies that are critically acclaimed. And
All right,
those are some of my hobbies.
all right, Fraser. I got one more hard hitting question for you. Do
Uh-oh.
you ever feel that racism is an issue in the Yu-Gi-Oh community? Not so much at like the online community, but at events.
Um, See, this is one of those things where it's all about experience. I feel like so. If I was being honest, I have not experienced racism at a Yu-Gi-Oh event. I've experienced racism in real life before. Only really like twice have I really felt racism. And I've seen racism like lately. Obviously, we've been
Yeah.
like I don't know what the hell is going on with the world. I've even wrote a status like what is happening? Like why are we regressing to where color matters again? Like that's not a thing. So like right now, like in real life, outside of the game, like I've seen racism, but inside of Yu-Gi-Oh, I feel like when I go to an event, I feel so comfortable. I feel so happy. I have a lot of friends who are of different ethnicities than I am, and like I'm African American. I have Asian friends and white friends, and like I have, I know everyone. Um, I don't really discriminate against anyone. Um, I don't really hate anyone, but I personally have not experienced like actual like because you are this thing that you cannot control. I don't like you. I've not experienced that treatment or even witnessed someone else really. I'm trying to think. Like I'm really trying to think hard if I've ever. I don't think I've had like seen someone because of their skin or because of like what they cannot change about themselves be an issue at an event. And I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, and maybe it does, and I'm sure someone has experienced it before. But me personally, I have not, thank God, experienced any kind of racism or anything like that. I mean, and this is one of those things where I'm just going to be honest. Like me and my friends, we kind of like make fun of things that are not politically correct. Like we make fun of each other because of race, and we make fun of each other because of sexuality and things like that. Like we kind of like we're very um, comfortable with being who we are, and we kind of all like get on each other and just make fun of each other because of whatever. But it's like we don't take it serious where like we feel like oh man, like you're actually being like a real racist. Like we kind of like, oh, that's racist. Like it like kind of like in a funny way. But like at this point in life, it's weird. It's starting to become like a real thing outside of the game, and I don't know how it went from being like quiet to now just like voiced racism everywhere. So I don't know. Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't think it's polluted Yu-Gi-Oh! Yet, and I'm thankful for that. At least not that I know of.
One of the reasons why I brought up that question is because you always hear stories lurking around in the community, and it's always nice to hear a standpoint on it, to give people that aren't involved in the game a standpoint
Right.
of some of the things that's involved in the game and things like that.
Yeah, I definitely think that I think that the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community is a good community despite we have our issues. Like stealing can be an issue. It's gone down a lot in recent years. Thank God. But outside of that, like I think that the Yu-Gi-Oh community is a fine community. I mean, we have like any other community in the world, there are always going to be people who bring it down. But I think the majority of the community is not bad. Maybe not regarding how they play the game, but as far as like how they are as a person, I think that we have some really good people that represent the community, and I would vouch for the Yu-Gi-Oh community over other communities if I had to. So
Even you've been sucked into the degeneracy that is Zodiac now.
yes, yep, I actually had to partake in the Joe guy who lied about having a top. I actually posted a meme today. I thought it was funny, so I wanted to get in on it. And I don't even really know him. I don't really know like the whole gist of everything. I just kind of read like what was going on. I thought it was really funny because I actually know someone who I grew up with who kind of lies about his tops, and I think it's kind of weird because like I know and all of my friends like McCabe, we all kind of know that he's lying about his tops. But like the people who don't know him and did not grow up with him, they don't. And since metagame doesn't really like exist anymore, like no one kind of fact checks it. Even though metagame you can get to it if you wanted to. So like I don't know. Like it's just kind of funny that like that actually is happening in another sect of the world where like someone is lying about legitimate like being a legitimate player and being a top player or whatever he said he was. Um, and I just thought like I just think it's funny. It'll go away, like someone said. They said, like this will pass, and you just have to kind of accept it. And I think that's exactly what it is. It's one of those things where people are going to clown you right now, and that's what you deserve for lying. But and also because you clown people too. And I think that's exactly what should happen. It's just kind of like it's a self-regulated, like where it's not just going to be stopped. You didn't come in and just say, all right, we're going to stop making fun of this guy because he's an admin or whatever he is, and we're going to stop. We're not going to do this. This is harassment, whatever. We're going to you actually just allow it to happen because this is kind of what it is. Like this is how people are, and it'll go away, and you'll get over it. And everyone will get over it. We'll be talking about something else.
On a much lighter note, we have a funny question. Is fashion a big part of your life?
Yes, it is. I am. Needless to say, if you follow me on Facebook or Instagram, you know that I love clothing. I own a lot of clothes. I shop pretty much every other day. I might not necessarily buy something every other day, but when I do buy things, I buy multiple things usually, or I buy like one really big thing, monetary wise.
Do you like going to the mall, or do you just like order online?
I do a lot. Strangely, I do a lot of ordering online because I am really small. So like everything that I buy like my waist. I buy all of my pants are size 29. So I buy a size 29 pants. It doesn't matter what brand it is; it's going to fit me. So I always buy 29. When it comes to shirt size and stuff like that, I always buy extra small if they have it. If they don't have it, I'll buy small. So it's really easy. I feel like it's almost like really easy to shop for me because I use like the smallest size of everything, and I can fit into it. And then some brands, because I've worn them already, I know exactly how they fit, so I know what size I actually need from them. So like when I order online, I know exactly what I'm getting without having to actually try it on. But if I do go to the mall, don't ever go shopping with me because I take a long time and I like to try on every single thing before I buy it. I don't really buy anything without trying it on. And I'm really indecisive and I can be very, very annoying. I'll sit there and I'll stare at something for like 20 minutes. I'll just sit there and like walk around with it and think about it. Then I'll try it on. Then I'll stare at it. And then I'll say, I don't really know how I feel about it. And then I'll ask my friend who's with me and he'll be like, like it looks fine. And I'm like, I don't know. And I'm kind of just like really, really meticulous when it comes to clothing. Like I won't buy something unless I really feel like it'll fit in with what I'm looking for at the time. So I'm really.
What's your typical?
Really,
what's the Fraizer Smith brand? Like, what do you want to go for? What's your target? Like the first thing you want to try.
Like my thing right now. I've been into some really high fashion stuff lately. So like Saint Laurent and Ballman, Givenchy, things like I've been into really high end fashion lately, but that's only been like in the last like 2 years or so because of my job. But before that, like I kind of like some of the basic stores that I shop at. Like I shop at still like regular places. Like I don't buy all things that cost thousands of dollars. I like J. Crew. I think J. Crew is amazing. They always have sales. I usually shop their sales. I'm a really big. That's another thing. I don't usually buy things at full price if I can. Like I usually buy like the sale of everything. So I won't like a lot of things that I buy. I won't even buy them if they're not on sale. Especially like from J. Crew, a place that always goes on sale, or like Banana Republic. They always having a sale, or Express, things like that. I feel like if you just wait, whatever you want will go on sale eventually. You just have to kind of wait. So I learned that as I got older. Like you don't have to really buy things at full price. So just buy things when they're on sale, and you'll save a lot of money. I mean, things go on like 50% off. Like that's ridiculous to go from something being $80 to being $40, and then it'll say like take an additional 25% off if you sign up for our email. So now you're getting like 50% off plus 25. You're getting 75% off on something, and it's like it went from being $80 to like nothing. Like it's you can buy like several things. So that's kind of how I shop. I'm like a really thrifty kind of person. Um, but when it comes to high end fashion, I don't really like differentiate between spending a lot and trying to save.
Do
Like
you
if I want something, I'm just gonna buy it.
do you typically just go off of fashion trends, or do you prefer like what looks good on yourself at the time?
Kind of both. Like lately, I've been trying the Kanye West style. Just like the oversized T-shirt under like a hoodie or sweatshirt with a bomber jacket and like Chelsea boots. Like I've been doing that a lot lately. Something that I usually I like to dress preppy. I am not a person that likes to dress like street style, but lately I've been dressing street style because I kind of like the way it looks. Um, it's just like a different take on what I usually dress. I'm a person that like I would wear a blazer every day. Like that's the kind of way I dress normally because I go to work and I'm all dressed up. So I'm used and I went to Catholic school my whole life, so I'm used to being like dressed up all the time. Usually wearing shoes and slacks or like some kind of chino pants or something like that. And I'm always used to being dressed up, so that's what I'm really comfortable in. So like me out of my comfort zone is like wearing like jeans and a hoodie and like I don't really like to wear hoodies, but like lately I've been like really trying to get into like hoodies and like jean jackets and things like that, things that I never would like really wear on my own, but since they're kind of like trendy and I really like pay attention to like some of like the fashionable people like Kanye, like I've been trying that kind of style lately and I really like it. Like I really actually like it. It showed a side of me that I didn't know was there.
Now, as we're getting ready to wrap this up, is there any shout outs you'd like to give? Anything else you'd like to say?
Oh yeah, shout out to Also Reality Games. I write weekly articles for them, even though not every week. Try to, but stuff happens. Shout out to your channel. What is your channel called, Robbie?
Oh, come on, Fraizer, you're supposed to remember this. It's
Well, MK MKohl40, something like
you
that.
got it, Fraizer. I like making you work for it a
All
little
right,
bit. You're supposed to know this.
all right. I had to think about it. I had to think about it. I knew it, but it's getting to the point where I've been talking for like 2 hours.
It's okay,
My,
Fraizer. I forgive you.
my brain is a little. Thank you for forgiveness.
Dude, it was a pleasure to have you on tonight. Like,
Oh, thank you.
go on with your shout out though.
It really, really was.
Oh yeah, shout out to Tommy Rowe, my ginger friend who helps me to kind of stay up on what's going on in the Yu-Gi-Oh community, and our newly formed team of just me and him, Team B, which is kind of just like our little joke, but yeah, he's really cool, and I think he's one of the best players coming up right now into the game, and he got his first YCS top this past weekend, and he almost won, so that's really cool. And yeah, and it was at Atlanta. I got my first top at Atlanta, so I think that's really cool. But yeah, shout out to Ultra Reality Game. Shout out to Tommy Rowe. Um, Shout out to Pat. I love Pat, as he knows. McCabe and Alternate Universe is my local in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And yeah, shout out to those guys. Shout out to you.
Once again, thanks for joining us tonight, Fraizer. This wouldn't have been
No
possible
problem.
without you, and of course, our sponsor, trollandtoad.com. If you guys haven't checked them out, this wouldn't be possible without them, much less having you here tonight. So, once again, thanks, Fraizer. It was a pleasure to have you. Thanks for Sebastian.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for Sebastian being here on questions. John and Joe are busy.
Okay.
Anything else, Sebastian?
No, man.
All right.